Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode. I'm filming this intro after I've done the interview, and it is not often that I can absolutely say I think this was one of the best episodes that I have filmed to date. It is heartfelt. I think this episode is truly about the shortcut to financial freedom in a way you probably are not expecting, but it's a shortcut to freedom. This man, I've had the journey of knowing him for 7 to 8 years. His name is Courtney Atkinson, and he's going to blow your mind with his journey to success, not by grinding and pushing and hustling, but through removing things and through becoming the type of person that just attracts success. And I'll be honest, I got to the end of this episode and everything he was describing, I was like, wow, that sounds so much easier than what traditional personal development and traditional business tells you to do. Go out there, grind, make stuff happen, go, go, go. He gives a totally alternative way to achieve massive levels of success. When I say massive levels, I'm talking he runs the number one team in all of EXP in all of Canada. So this guy has achieved financial freedom at a very, very, very high level. Someone I look up to and is a dear friend of mine. Enjoy the episode. Well, man, I'm so excited for today. I really want to dive into, I was just thinking about it and taking some notes before you got on. I really want to dive into two big things that I just feel like I want to just kind of map your journey. And I realized that I actually have some pure curious questions of my own on this new designation you've got as number one team in Canada. First of all, huge congrats on that. That's so badass.
Thanks, man. The funny thing about that is that they just started counting. So it's been that way for 3 years. And we just got recognition this year. So it's like a monster piece of frustration of mine. But whatever, that's just the way it's been.
Wait, so you're it's frustrating because you should have been designated this 2 years ago?
Yeah, dude, I know factually we were the number one team by units for the last 3 years. And our brokerage was only counting, US. They weren't even tracking deals in Canada at all.
Interesting.
Yeah. So kind of frustrating, but hey, yeah, thank you.
So I want to map out, I just want to kind of I think what would be really valuable to my listeners would be kind of mapping your progress to that point, as let's call that the top of the mountain. Let's call that a pinnacle. What were some of the struggles along the way? What do you feel like, what was it that got you there? If we were to kind of deconstruct your process to reaching a goal like that, what would that look like? And I think those are just principles of success that we could probably pull out of your brain that would be really valuable for listeners. And then the second thing I want to go really deep on, and we can talk about anything else you want to, but the second thing I really go deep on is just accountability. I was so inspired by that talk you gave the other day, which, by the way, you crushed it. That was so awesome. Thank you so much. And just going deep on that, not only is it something I'm trying to promote a lot of right now in our membership, but even just to putting it out there to the world of hey, even if you're not in our membership and you're just doing a lot of the free stuff that I give away, find an accountability buddy and go deep on that. So I'd love to talk about how you find the accountability buddy, how you would know what structure would work for that. And I feel like you could just offer a ton of value in those two superpowers of yours.
Happy to do that. Of course, man. So one of the questions that I have for you is your general format. Is it just is this it now? Are we rolling?
Yeah.
Is it?
We're just rolling. We're talking.
Okay. It's just we get to hang out now. This is cool, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
We'll edit it, of course, but this is just this is just this conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The first thing that I want to say is just thank you. You and I've known each other so long, and you know that I'm a super fan of yours. You're gracious enough to host me in your house. This is going back too long, and I feel like I don't see enough of Sam Wegert in my life, and I feel like the universe could just use a maximum amount of Sam Wegert. So I'm glad you're doing this podcast. I'm glad you've got this great audience. I'm glad that you're delivering mad value to this co-living environment and universe that you've created and are pouring into, man. It's just so much value inside of you. I'm glad to see that you've got all these mechanisms for delivering it, and that I get to be a part of that. So thanks, man. Second thing I wanted to just to share is that one of the words that you used was this kind of peak or something. And I just wanted to reflect on that. I think one of the things that all of us need to be cautious of is that there really is no peak. If you ask me, I know that for some folks, they look at, this fact that we've accomplished so much and these accolades and awards as being the thing or, the goal or what have you. But I think the challenge with that is that if you view it that way personally, it kind of creates this potential for stasis and for laziness, frankly. And not to say that there's nothing wrong with enjoying accomplishment. I think it's really important that we appreciate micro accomplishments, like here. Straight truth, Mel's got COVID at home. She hasn't been out of bed since Thursday. Yesterday, I had to leave work early because I thought I have it. Like, I'm just really pleased that I'm here today. I don't have COVID, apparently. So that's good news. But also, like, recognizing that this journey for me has just been a series of days and successes and failures stacked on top of one another without stopping, right? This is one, like, tangible achievement, having received this award for all this production. But there is a lot more to do. There's a lot more that I want to accomplish. And I don't know that I have like this thing where it's like, okay, if I achieve this thing, finally I'll stop. I mean, I love the work and I love the days that I have, and I love choosing who I get to spend time with. And I love making an impact in the universe and in my communities and with agents and with investors. And so as long as I'm finding ways to do that, to me, that's the win. Like, the win isn't like this award. I mean, sure, it's nice to be recognized. I'm not saying it's not, but it's more about what can I do as a human being that puts me in flow and gives me the most energy to show up with every single day, so that no matter what I'm doing, no matter who I'm talking to, I'm like 10 out of 10 fired up, right? And for me, like, this work puts me in those places, man. It gives me the opportunity to hang out with you and puts me on stage in front of thousands of people, chatting and sharing thoughts and ideas that can inspire and help them. It gives me an opportunity to support the agents on my team and deliver mad value in the communities that we serve, and gives me time and freedom to spend with my family and, travel 16 weeks a year, or whatever it is that we do. And so I just want to, kind of caution our listeners that, hey, like, just try to get to this place where you're doing work that you love, where you're doing it with people that you love, and where it feels really, really good, and where your energy is nearly limitless when you're doing it. And in terms of, how I got here, I mean, bro, you know a lot about this story, and you were party to a lot of the ugly bits of it. Actually, that's one of the things that I love about you, Sam, is that, you've seen a lot of failings, right? And you've seen some successes, and you've been behind the scenes. And so for the benefit of our viewers, I'll share with you, when Sam and I first started hanging out, going back 7 or 8 years, we can't really put our finger on how long it's been, but somewhere in that range, we were in an accountability group. And I was in that accountability group because I was having a lot of trouble with my business, with my life, and with my health. I was at a time in my business where I was surrounded by a lot of people with a tremendous amount of entitlement, and where I'd created a business that required me to be in it, trading my time for money and keeping it afloat, because it was in no way independent of me and my efforts. And the ultimate thing that happened there, Sam, and you were kind of their first person seeing it, was that I was being the kind of leader deserving of the treatment that I was receiving from my team members. These weren't bad people, okay? These were people who had come around me because of how I had shown up with a big ego and, boasting about all these things that I could do for them. And then with a slight hint of a change in the marketplace, then it was fingers out, hands out, like, what can you do for me now? And if you dare change anything, we'll leave you essentially bankrupting you. And, Sam knows, he was there firsthand. At that time, I was in a position where the market had shifted. The economy was not strong. We needed to make a bunch of changes in the business around accountability, around prospecting, like all these things that are, fairly common sense, but I had not built those things into my business. And when I went to the team and said, hey, these are some things that we need to do in order to be profitable, in order to stay in business together, they all said, hey, listen, do any one of those things and we'll leave. And the truth was, I couldn't afford that. I really couldn't afford it. And so, my wife, Mel, the love of my life, and my business partner had a really in-depth conversation. And she's nearly inflappable, as you know, Sam, and I'm more emotional and, a little bit more high-strung, a high D personality. And Mel was like, well, we'll just borrow the money from my mom and we'll figure it out. And, meanwhile, for me, it was like endless sleepless nights, tons of anxiety, and all kinds of health problems going on. But we did borrow that money, and I did get to work on me and my mindset and how I was showing up and the language that I was using and the way that I was being in this world to people. And what I recognized was this. I mean, if I could summarize it kind of in a real simple way for leaders out there, folks trying to build teams, I would say this. You're perfect the way that you are. And by the way that you are, I mean this. I mean, not with your mask on, not with your ego, not with the things that you're trying to prove to people, not with the way that you want to be seen, not with the way that you think that you should be seen as a leader, but I mean the way that you are, with all your fears, all your worries, all your vulnerabilities, all the challenges that you face with. Go check out my social media. I pretty much laid out the itemized list of all the things that I've messed up in my life yesterday on my social, from an overdose at age 12 to being arrested, charged for aggravated assault. I mean, all these things, permanent record. I mean, man, it's all out there in the wind right now. But for me as a leader in the early stages of my career, I was just trying to be this guy. I was trying to be a leader. And what I learned was that, hey, listen, I'm fine. Just the way that I am, it's good enough. Now you can have some skills. I'm not saying that you don't. I'm not saying that you don't have to have effective communication strategies. I'm not saying that you don't have to be aware of how to create change management in a way that creates wins for everybody that you're serving. But how you show up is really, really critical. And showing up as yourself, I think, is just one of these things that is really hard to do, because we have this idea that we need to be someone else, not ourselves vulnerably leading, but this caricature version of ourselves as a leader doing these things. And I can tell you firsthand, it nearly broke me, both personally and professionally, man. And that was one big thing that I had to learn super hard. And it took a minute, but with your help, Sam, and with the help of other friends and lots of reading and, praying and meditating and, all these things, it was a thing that I was able to work through. And I'm grateful to you for being part of that journey.
Wow, man. I can honestly say that you still with me? You broke up there for a second.
I got the frozen face, right?
Yeah. I was like, where did it go?
Why is he staring at me? You're in my teleprompter, by the way.
That's great. No, and maybe I made that comment half because I'm feeling vulnerable right now, because I've never almost wanted to cry on my podcast, dude. That hit me like a ton of bricks. I got really emotional there. I could have teared up at that moment. I was like, don't, because as entrepreneurs, yeah, man. I mean, I know people listening to this podcast, my audience maybe they don't want to build the biggest real estate team. There might be some people listening to that do, but they want some other mountaintop that they would consider a mountaintop. They want to become financially free. They want to quit their W-2 job. They want to have enough co-living homes or whatever to retire their wife or whatever it is. And there's a lot of striving that goes into that, man. And so just to hear that is yeah, we all want financial freedom. I feel like, to feel more free. And I almost feel like what you just shared is kind of yeah, you can be free at some level right now.
Mm-hmm.
You can be who you are and choose it right now.
Yeah.
So very, very, very powerful. Really hit me deep in a big way, man. Thank you for everything, all of that you just shared.
100%. I mean, this is now kind of moving into this concept of freedom, right? Because you nailed it, brother. That's what we're all after. Okay. And freedom has these constructs that society has placed on them. For freedom, some people, it looks like, being on a $50 million yacht, or it looks like not being tied to an office, or it looks like maybe just not worrying about money, or maybe not worrying about groceries, right? Freedom to different people means different things. I think ultimately the common piece of what freedom is a sense of being at peace, okay? It's just a sense of peace where I can sit in my current momentary me energy and feel good enough to do whatever it is that's in front of me as me, not as a caricature of a version of me that I think I need to be to accomplish this thing, to achieve the freedom, but now in this moment as me, doing me the best way that I can. And that's just a really hard thing to do, because consciously, right? Here we are in our heads looking outwards with these eyes that only see one direction, right? We don't think of space universally in the way that it exists, constantly expanding. We think of time linearly, we look out on social media and we see a person who has the things that we want. Okay. And we see these repeatedly. Social media feeds these to us or reinforces it to us. And we think, okay, I got to be that person to get that thing. Okay. And it's just the wrong way of thinking. Like, we're constantly being programmed to feel like we're not enough. And it's just not true. Right? Like, there's space for every single person listening to this podcast today to be their perfect version of themselves as they are today, delivering the best that they have inside of them with their perfect self, using their perfect energy. It's just that we have to find a way to step into that. And my method, like I said, was just, meditation, lots of reading, and going through these affirmations and just going through a gratitude practice and reminding myself, like, listen, man, like, you have so many blessings, bro. Like, yeah, there's this mountain that you're climbing, no question. And that's a big goal, and that's challenging. And yeah, it's going to be fraught with all of these things. And you can spend time focusing and worrying on this thing that's down the road, the proverbial road, or you can just sit in this moment right now and be so grateful that you have anything to think about and work towards at all. And I began to get really appreciative of the journey. Like, just the fact that I got to have a challenge, the fact that I had somebody leaving my company, the fact that I lost $25,000 to the number is actually $40,000 to a former business partner that stole from me. Like, I'm like, no, like, this is a blessing. Like, it's nothing else but a blessing in this beautiful journey of life. And how grateful I should be that I got to be the person that was a part of that. Like, if we can adopt that philosophy, everything just gets so much easier. And then what you find is that the energy of challenge doesn't stop inside you and block you up and kind of roll within you and then pile up and then cause anger. It just flows through you. Like, it's not even a thing for us. And then you carry on more easily. There's fewer challenges and everything just got so much easier. And then the odd thing was, and it's not like I was doing it for money, I was doing it for peace, but then the money really started to pile up too. And let's be honest, like, we all love that. That's good, right? Making money and, financial freedom. I mean, gosh, man, from the time that you and I first met to now, like, my net worth's gone through the roof, and I'm like fractionally stressed, fractionally wound up. I'm sleeping like a baby. I'm in the best health of my life. Whereas then I was like fat and almost dead, like, daily. And what I really had to do was, like, let go, like, stop stressing, bro. Like, just settle into doing me. And so I think that's a kind of universal application, whether it applies to someone who's trying to build their network of, legal advisors, investors, bankers, yes, coaches, in your case, Sam, where you yes, lead so many people in this important and complex business of co-living and teaching people how to do that. Like, build your network of people, show up, treat those people in the way that you would wish to be treated, be your dang self, best you can be, and watch those people want to pour into you, versus being that, like, hard charging, super stressed out, like, angry person all the time, banging on Sam's phone all the time. Like, like, do these things for me, Sam. I paid you $50 this month. Where are you? And you're like, bro, like, happy to help, but why this energy? Like, that's the way the universe treats that. And that's what I had gotten. And now I get people, like, calling me up, just, like, offering to help me. Like, hey man, what are you up to? Like, you want to partner on this thing? Be cool. Like, let's hang out. And I'm like, dang, yeah, like, that's in alignment with what I'm doing. I would love to. And then other times you get to say no, because I'm not scared of saying no to things either. And Sam, that's one of the things that you and I've talked about a lot over the years. You're so good at this, right? Learning to say no, right? What do I say no to? It's critical. We have to say no to more so that we can be saying yes to these things that move us further down the road. And so much value in that. And that's one of the things that you've shared with me. And I'm certain that you're sharing with your audience as well.
Yeah, brother, this is pure gold. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. I think what you're describing is what we all really want. I couldn't imagine a listener listening to this going, yeah, no, that's not interesting to me. Like, that is the feeling we want to feel inside. And I think that's a lot of the reason we go after big goals, is because we think by achieving big goals, we will get that feeling on the inside. And we're disappointed when we reach a big goal. Like, you started this podcast off by saying, like, I reached it, but, like, kind of should have had it a few years ago. I'm still moving. I'm still going. And we get disappointed because, like, that big goal, reaching it didn't make us feel that way. And so you are literally, what I believe, teaching the shortcut to true freedom. I mean, that's literally, like, that might even be the title of this podcast, man.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
The shortcut to true financial freedom is because it's an inside job.
Yeah.
But you mentioned masks, man. I want to ask you about masks because I definitely find in my life, there's a lot of times I was even at a meeting just the other day, and I kind of found myself like really uncomfortable, like trying to figure out who I needed to be in this meeting. Not the true authentic Sam, like, okay, do I need to show up like really calm and quiet? Do I need to show up really like, and I guess maybe there's some of that that's valuable, but it was a really uncomfortable, weird place. I was like, who do I need to be to impress this person? Because it's someone I want to impress, right? It's someone I want to do a deal with. How did you realize like you had these masks on? How did you begin removing them to kind of strip down to this true sense of self where you are calm, you can be peaceful? What did that look like for you? And what advice would you have for someone that's like, cool, sounds good, where do I start?
Yeah, right. Oh, that's such a great question, Sam. I think first of all, for every person, the journey is going to feel a little bit different. Okay. And so for me, my truth is that I've just learned most of my lessons the hardest conceivable way, either through being nearly faced with bankruptcy or nearly faced with, divorce or, nearly faced with death. These are things that I've been up against many times in my life. And there's one person who's at the center of that, and that's this guy named Courtney Atkinson. And so I think, first of all, we just have to take responsibility that, it's us at the center of all this. Okay. Pain and pleasure, good and bad, accomplishment and failure. There's one commonality, and that's me in the way that I've showed up that got me here, good or bad. I think the second piece of this is remembering that judgment is the enemy of happiness, right? And what I mean by that is that I had to learn that there is really no good or bad. Okay. There are days stacked on days, time stacked on time. And I needed to just move through this space with as good energy as I could possibly have in this particular day, recognizing that my journey is perfect. I'm doing everything at the right time for me. All these things are happening for me, not to me. And just releasing this idea of judgment about what was happening in my life. And really what that did for me was just created a lot less anxiety, a lot less stress. And for me, like as I said to you, why or how, what was it for me? It was really a matter of trying to save my life. Like, Sam, I haven't disclosed this a whole bunch, but the truth was that there were nights. I mean, there's about this month-long period where I had a couple guaranteed sales pile up and I'd forgotten about them, and I had to come up with hundreds of thousands of dollars in like 2 days, a couple times in a row. As you can imagine, my wife wasn't entirely impressed with that. I had 2 new babies in the house. I wasn't sleeping. Like, all the things were piled up. I had high blood pressure. I was having panic attacks. I was having chest pain, and I was like literally laying in bed for the span, like probably over a 2-week period. I had this thought like 5 or 6 times at night, typically right around 3 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, man, this whole family and this whole world is going to be way better off with my $5 million insurance policy than they are with me showing up, making these stupid ass decisions that put me and my family in these critical positions all the damn time. And like, I was like, man, like, I don't want to live like this, bro. Like, this sucks. Okay. And if I'm having these thoughts, surely to goodness, I'm not going to deliver on them. Like that wasn't really like a possible outcome for me, but it was just a sign of the degree of pain. And I'm like, well, there has to be another way. Like, what am I doing that's consistently getting me in these types of positions? And ultimately what I settled on, Sam, was that my decision-making was being driven by fear, right? I was scared that I wasn't making enough progress. I was scared that I wasn't moving fast enough. I was scared that I was running out of time. And so everything that I saw seemed like an opportunity. And I would say yes to all these things that I really should have been saying no to. In some cases, guaranteed sales. In other cases, business partnerships. In some cases, people that were joining the team. In other cases, things that I was doing instead of choosing to do other things with my time. All of which were based on fear. All of which were consistently getting me in these places that were not moving me further down the road. And what I had to settle on was like, what choices are you making, Courtney, that are for your future, that are for good, that are based on you believing 10 out of 10, 100% that you're good enough just the way that you are, that your path is perfect, that you're on the right track, and that you're doing the right things that you need to accomplish your goals. And once I realized that I needed a different approach. Otherwise, I was literally either going to, I was going to die in some capacity through a heart attack or through driving or some insane stuff that I was up to. I just had to change the way that I looked at the universe. And it sounds like a very simple thing, but this is what I coach in my business. It's like, listen, man, everything else gets easier when you adopt this philosophy. Like the decision making that you make in your business is critical. I'm not saying it's not. You got 1,000 things that you could potentially choose to do, but the most critical thing that I share with anybody is that decision making gets so much easier when you do the work on the 6 inches between here and get to the point where you're just at peace, you feel good, and you have faith that it's all going to work out. And you stop exercising from a place of fear and you start exercising from a place of abundance, and then just watch these things show up from you. And then it's a matter of like, no, 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 yes. No, 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 yes. Whereas before it was yes, 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 no, yes, 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 no, overwhelm, nearly broke, nearly having a heart attack. And for me, I was like, okay, enough of that. I just got to reverse this strategy, take a different approach, have a different philosophy, and say no a lot more than I was. Does that answer that question, you think?
So beautifully. If someone's listening to this, if we could get as tactile as possible, like, where would somebody start on this journey? Like, would you say, so I get it. I get what you're saying. Like, hey, make the decision to come from this different place, but I know your journey well enough to know that like there were other influences in your life. You had people around you, you had accountability, which is something I want to segue into at some point. And, you were, if I could share it, I think you were seeing a therapist at the time, you were seeing people, you had coaches, you had mentors in your life. Like, how would you paint a very simple roadmap, as simple and as tactile as possible? Like, should someone start with meditation? Is that the place to start for them? And I say that because a lot of my audience is beginning this journey to financial freedom. They haven't been in this world for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Like we've been in it, our lives, right? Your story is so inspiring to see, like, no matter where someone is listening to this, like, look where they can go. That is a beautiful journey that you've made. And I think you are the example of what's possible by making some of these decisions. Where does someone start?
That's such a beautiful question, man. I'll do my best. I think the first thing we have to recognize is that we are at the center of these challenges. It's so easy for us. And again, like if we think about the way that our eyes face, we look outwards, we're implicitly in a space of judgment. Okay. We think that everything here is perfect and everything out there is wrong. And if everything out there would just get fixed, then everything in here would be fine. And it's the exact opposite that's true. So ultimately, I think it does have to start with some degree of accountability. We have to recognize that these challenges are everywhere I go. Okay. And when I looked around, I was asking these questions, Sam. I was looking at other people in the industry, other people that I knew who seemed to be having more success, who seemed to be happier, who seemed to struggle less. And I thought, well, gosh, they don't seem dramatically brighter than me. They don't seem to have a dramatically better business than me. Like, what's that about? And it came down to the fact that it was their state of being that was different. And so I think it has to start with a degree of accountability. And I'm not talking about like 10 out of 10, full acceptance. I'm just saying, like, if you're finding challenges in your life, well, and they're happening daily, like, you just might want to take a look in the mirror because you keep showing up in these places where there's challenges. So that's thing one. I think thing two is developing a practice whereby we can adjust some wiring. Because the second piece for me, Sam, that really, really helped was to not think of me as Courtney Atkinson with all of the baggage and, stuff that we all carry with us from our childhoods. And we all do. Okay, we all developed some of that between the ages of 2 and 6, right? For me, it was just thinking of my body and my mind as a very sophisticated machine that simply needed different inputs. Okay. And here's what I mean by that. If we had a piece of software that wasn't functioning properly, would we take a hammer to it? No, we're going to press some buttons, give it some different inputs, and then the outputs will correct themselves. And over time, we'll have a piece of software that works nicely. If a factory was having problems painting a car and the paint was coming out, maybe off color or, not perfectly glossy, are we going to go smash that robot? Or are we going to look at the mixture of paint and look at the inputs there? Well, no, we would obviously look at trying to fix those inputs so we could have better outputs. And I had to look at what my inputs were. What was I consuming? Okay. Social media, right? What was I consuming? news? What was I consuming? People, friendships, associations. What were the conversations that I was having with those people? What was I putting in my mouth? Alcohol. Okay. What was I putting in my mouth? Cheeseburgers, French fries, garbage food, right? What was I putting in my mouth? Not water, any number of other things, right? And once I started realizing that, hey, listen, like this is just a machine that's functioning the best that it can on the inputs that it has. Well, why don't I just start treating this machine a little bit better? And why don't I consider it like we would if it was one of these other examples? So the very first thing that I did, and I'm not advocating that everybody do this, but I do just want to make a point. I thought, listen, what's the most high impact, easy single choice that I can make that's probably going to have the biggest impact on my outputs? And I settled on alcohol. I just did an account of how much I drank. I was never an alcoholic, but the fact was that probably once or twice a month I would go out and have a big night with friends. And then naturally I would lose all of my Sunday. I'd be at 50% Monday at best. I'd be at 70% Tuesday, maybe 80% Wednesday, and 100% by Thursday. And I just did an account of the days in the year where I would do that and realized that I was losing somewhere between 50 and maybe 75 days of 10 out of 10 productivity by my own doing. And so the natural next question was, well, am I like driving so much value through these associations that they're making up for that? And the answer was no. Like you might argue that if you're at a conference and you're staying out late with some future business partners and you're learning and masterminding and drinking, that's good. But that wasn't my Thursday, Saturday night or whatever. Then I was asking the question, okay, well, who are these people that I'm hanging out with? What kind of conversations are we having? And it turned out that a lot of the conversations were the same. A lot of them were dead end. A lot of them weren't enhancing my life in any way. And I realized that I was having conversations at a lower level than where I wanted to take my life. And so not only was alcohol this kind of thing that was like sucking energy and time away from me, but the people that I was consuming alcohol with on a consistent basis were bringing me down from the potential that I could achieve without them. And as sad as that was for my reality, I let go of alcohol for a full year, at which time most of those friends stopped calling me. But that created space and time in my schedule to work on my business and to go build new friendships. And, I have to say, like, that sounds like an easy thing to say, but here's really what it was. It was an identity crisis, okay? Because I grew up in the Maritimes, which is a part of Canada where everybody drinks, okay? It's a huge part of our culture. And now I was going to be the guy that didn't drink. And so naturally, what did that mean? Well, it meant that I didn't want to go out late at night because I wasn't drinking and I wasn't fueled to stay out late. I didn't go to the bar during work for lunch. I didn't have beers during the day. I didn't go out Friday after work. And after a while, I wasn't invited to play golf because nobody likes golfing with the sober guy. I wasn't invited to the golf tournaments. I wasn't invited out for fight nights. Like I just stopped getting those invitations, right? And that was something that I prepared myself for. I knew that it would come. It was sad when it did come. But at the same time, the door was now wide open for these other relationships and the things that I could do with that energy, Sam. And I started realizing, okay, so I've got these couple things that I've stacked now, these wins, okay? I've got time and I've got energy back. What if I made some more changes? What if I started taking my health more seriously? What if I consumed, as a matter of fact, like every day a gallon of water? If I just did that, start every day with a liter, don't shut it down before I've got a full gallon into me. What if I exercised no less than 3 days a week and focused on my cardiovascular health and focused on my weight training? And I could start to feel strong and a little bit more confident. Like, what would that do for me? What if I was reading so consistently that I could bring more value to my conversations? What if I started recording video content daily so that I could become a better speaker and add more value in shorter periods of time for the people that I got to engage with? And so I started looking at the ways that I could add more value to the people in my life. And not surprisingly, Sam, over the span of that next year, as I brought more value to the people in my life, they had more respect for me. I attracted more people. I attracted more opportunities. I drove more income. And I've just continued to kind of stack those things over time. So that was the real simple stuff. And then, to your point, during that time, I was also doing those things that I think are so critical for the rewiring. Now that I was primed to be rewired, Yeah, I started looking at my gratitude practice. I sat down every morning and I spent 10, 15 minutes just writing down very basic things that I was grateful for. Not like, my house and my car and all this stuff, but like, I'm grateful that I woke up in a house that was warm this morning. I'm grateful for the smile that I got out of my 1-year-old yesterday when I did this thing. Like, just these very basic things. And then I started going through my affirmation practice, which is really just, let's have a look at the things that scare us to death about ourselves, that critic really worried about. And we think a lot of not enoughness in there. And we flip the script on those and we write those down. And I went through those and went through rewiring practice about me, my confidence, and the things that I felt good about. And then over time, as you can imagine, with any piece of software in our brains or just complex software, I started to think, feel, and act differently. Then the word choices were different because I was coming from a different place. I was coming now from a place of abundance. I didn't have the same fears that I had before, and I had better energy. And so I would say these things kind of stacked on top of one another, looking at the consumption stuff on a big level, then getting to the point where we're starting to work critically on this wiring. We just start to bring more value, Sam. And then when we can do that, we're just a much better asset to the universe. And I think for anybody listening to this podcast, certainly they're invested and interested in becoming the best version of themselves possible. Well, hey, listen, part of that is being the best person possible so that we can serve at the highest level. In order to do that, we have to look critically inside and say, hey, who do I need to be that person for others, right?
Man, I think this is what makes you such a great coach, because you could have just as easily gotten on this podcast and I basically been asking you like, hey, help me deconstruct your path to success, right? And you could have said, well, I did this and I called this many leads and that's a normal conversation I would have with someone. Here's all the tactical things. But I feel like you're coming just from a completely different perspective of like, it's all about who you are. And it reminds me of this story. I was in a seminar one time and this lady said, you don't need to force growth ever. And I remember like initially when she said that from stage, I disagreed with her. I was like, come on, I'm the push it guy. And I'm the guy who like goes and makes stuff happen, right? At that time in my life, that was my coaching, strategy too for other people. Like go just call more people. And then she brings out this big plant and she was like, think about a plant. Do you have to force a plant to grow? And she's like, no, it just has to have the right conditions, right? Is the sun right? Is it enough water? And when it has the right conditions, and I'll never forget, because I feel like this is what you're saying in your own words so beautifully and elegantly said. She said, when it has the right conditions, growth is natural. And again, it was like, just for lack of a better term, it was a mind fuck for me. I was like, wait a second, you mean I don't have to push and crush and put on those masks that, every day and go. Yeah. And it's just like, whoa. And I feel like you're saying that, man, in such a profound way of just like, no, when you align, it flows from there. It's just so well said.
Something that you said that I thought was really insightful and engaging was how you were in this room with this person that you would like to partner with, and you felt like you needed to be this version of Sam Wegert, right? And I don't want to pretend that I'm perfect, brother. Like, of course, these things happen to all of us. I mean, that's part of this beautiful journey, is that we're constantly challenged, right? And we're constantly in a place where we get to do the work, like that's the beauty of this whole thing. The thing that I've settled on is that there are things that I can make work. Okay. Like I can hustle and I can grind and I can throw the mask on and I can go make things happen. Okay. And I've done that. Right. But we also have to realize that for each and every one of us, we're only going to have so many days on this planet. And for each and every one of us, there's only so many days and so many hours that we have to do whatever it is that we're meant to do. Right. And so I began to ask myself, like, I could have this vision for what I think I need to do and all the people who I think that I need to do it. And I can hustle and grind and mask up and go out there and make that happen. And I'll consume all of my time doing that. And it'll seem perfect and it'll seem like my grind has been worth it. But what I will have missed is the opportunities that I will have created just by being the perfect version of myself with my work ethic, with my beauty, with my gifts, and just going out there and attracting people that want to be around me, that want to support that, and allowing my door to be open to those people without trying to control the outcomes. And my experience has been that yes, I can indeed hustle and grind and make things happen. And for sure, I've made loads of money doing that, but not nearly as much money. I haven't been nearly as happy, and I haven't had nearly the same health experience as I have when I've just done the work, been really, really disciplined, and said no to things that just seem hard, gritty, or grindy to me, and just left space for the beauty and the ease, the high dollar activity work to show up for me, the people to show up for me. And that's just been a really different thing. And I know it sounds counterintuitive to so many of our listeners. It was counterintuitive to me. I'm thinking, like, so you mean like I should just be lazy and it's going to be better? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. I better get up and grind. Like, I can't do that, right? That's not really what it is. It's not suggesting for a moment that you take your 60-hour work week and you turn it into 10 and hope that you're going to 100x your income. It doesn't work that way. It's just about how do you spend your 60 hours, right? Do you spend them in high energy, high flow states with people that you love, with people that love you as you are? Or do you spend them out there grinding, masking up, making things happen because you have to, because you haven't created space for the beauty to show up for the beauty that's in you? That's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. Courtney, where does accountability fit into this for you? What role has that played in you being where you are? And selfishly, I would love for you to tell the six-pack story, because it's a great way to segue into accountability. And I listened to that like 2 times the other day.
Oh, dude,
that's ultimately how we know each other. Was we were in, technically, I guess you could say, an accountability group.
Yeah.
Kind of what it is in a pod, a small group, which is now something I'm trying to promote in my course and mastermind, is trying to promote people to, get together in these pods and have that small group feel and really hold each other accountable. So, you can kind of take that wherever you want to go, but I want to transition for this last section into accountability.
Yeah, bro. Well, I think it's important that we preface this by saying that, your net worth is your network, isn't it? And I'm not suggesting for a moment that we all do this for our net worth, okay? But there's a reason that people are listening to your podcast, and it's not because they're interested in growing potatoes, okay? They're generally going to be interested in generating passive income and wealth that's going to help them achieve some lifestyle freedom, like we talked about earlier. And I think it's also important that we recognize that we can use, I think, really 2 things to motivate ourselves to get into action to achieve the goals that we have. We can push against some pain that we have, some pain from childhood, some fear about being broke, trying to prove something to a parent or a spouse or a child, whatever. That's the pain side. And then we have our goals, right? We set some big, lofty goals, and we work towards these things because we want to see our dreams come true. The challenge is pushing against that pain. Sometimes, it's like an elastic band. You get so far down the road and you kind of forget about the pain because you're getting a little bit closer to the goal, but then you lose track of that and it kind of attracts you. And it's almost like you kind of forget, and you're like, well, wait a minute, for 2 months now, I've been operating from this place of pain again. And that doesn't feel so good. And sometimes, you can work towards these goals, but sometimes they can seem just too far off, right? And maybe it's a little bit demotivating. And so we can kind of oscillate between, pain and pleasure, pain and goals. And the way that I've used accountability over the years, Sam, is that I've looked at it as a way to kind of like create a flagpole or almost an anchor somewhere in the middle. Like my lofty goals, they're time tightened. I know when I want these different things to happen, no question. Okay. And I certainly, just like everybody else, have my pain that I push against as well. But sometimes these 2 things can be just a little bit too far away, and I'm in the middle oscillating, maybe a little bit lost. And so I hold accountability as an important anchor in the middle so that I don't get too far one way or the other. And this is a reasonably new concept for me. I mean, as you were around when I learned it, like, gosh, it's going 7 or 8 years ago. But the story is, I was at this time, I was in this accountability group with Sam and some other gentlemen. And we were just going around talking about some goals that we wanted to accomplish. And for me personally, it was at the stage, as I shared with you a moment ago, where I knew that I needed to get my health on point. I had gone through dropping alcohol. I had gone through changing up some friends. I had changed many habits. I had adopted, my practice in the morning, getting to bed earlier, drinking water, exercising, and all that stuff. But I really thought, okay, like, I really want to take my health to another level. And my measure for that was a 6-pack. mean, I've always been dreaming of this. I mean, I used to play football at about 280. I'm 225 now. And so it kind of big change. And I'd never really been that guy. I thought, okay, that's a good goal. That's a good measuring stick. And I think, I don't know, let's say that this was in May or June. So our friend Adam says, okay, by when? And I'm thinking, damn, son, okay. Well, in my mind, I was like, well, I should easily be able to do it by August. So I say September. And he's like, when? I'm like, all righty then. I think I picked the last day of September 30th or whatever it was. Give myself as much time as possible now that I'm into it with this dude who's calling me on like everything from days to months. And then his next question's like, okay, well then if not what? And I'm like, who is this guy, man? Like, why is he pushing so hard? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, I'm thinking I'm being a baller. I'm like, there's 5 of us, I think at that time. I'll give each of you guys $1,000. So $4,000 out of my pocket. I'm thinking that's a lot of money. And, pardon me for swearing on your podcast, Sam, but I believe Adam's exact words were, that's fucking weak. Make it 100,000. I said, what? He says, yeah, make it 100,000. Like just dead silence, just drops it like that.
There's also a time where, per your previous story, your ego is pretty high during this stage of your life too. So you're like,
and I'm broke, bro. Like, I mean, I had investments. Okay. There's a difference between like being asset, solid and cash poor. Like I was cash poor, bro. And in my head, like I'm being called out by a relatively new friend in front of like 4 other dudes. So what are you going to say? I'm like, okay. Like was the only response I could think of. Meanwhile, in the back of my head, I'm like, how am I going to explain this to my wife? Like this ain't gonna be good at all. Right. And so anyway, time goes on. I don't think that we got to the stage of accountability yet where I'd written the check yet, but I know that we did eventually get to the point where we were like sending cash in the mail, like for accountability. Fortunately, I don't think that we were at that stage, but it was a public declaration. And I have absolutely no doubt that if I didn't show up with a 6-pack, that there wasn't going to be the expectation to come out with $100,000. And I'll tell you what, I've never since then been so motivated to achieve a goal because straight up, like in my head, I'd already spent this $100,000. I needed abs to earn it back. Like that's really what accountability was for me.
Wow.
And so, yeah, man, I mean, I hired a trainer. I was in the gym 5 days a week. Like, don't think for a second that I didn't crush out my diet for those 4 months, right? I mean, I was like best shape ever up to that point. And it really, really worked. And what that lesson taught me, Sam, was that you need friends in your life that are going to make you uncomfortable, not so that they can enjoy it, not so that they can shame you, not so that they can get something out of it, but so that they can help you win. Like we're so accustomed, I think, as human beings to like create comfort for one another. Your friend goes on social media and they've had some challenge and you're patting them on the back saying, yes, it's like, here, how about you be the friend that says, listen, if you weren't such an asshole, these things wouldn't keep happening to you. Like nobody's saying these things, right? We're thinking it sometimes. Oh, she always finds herself in drama. Like, well, why is nobody helping her not be drama? Or what about your buddy who's constantly finding himself in this sort of situation? You're all around him like, yeah, man, you're right. And nobody's like, bro, like, can we have a chat? Like, I think maybe I can help you with this thing that keeps showing up in your life. Is that a conversation you'd like to have? And these are the types of friends that I found at that time, Sam, you being one of them, and that I've consistently placed in my life strategically since that time. Because here's the thing, guys, like it's a short time that I have here. It's not nearly long enough. Like I couldn't string together 5 lifetimes and do all the things that I can dream of and want to do and impact the lives that I want. And I don't want to waste days. And I'm 48 years old. I got 2 young kids. Like I don't want to waste days with them either. And so if I'm going to be real and maximize all of the things that I want to maximize in the time, I got to remember that sometimes my goals are going to seem too lofty to have me 10 out of 10 driven to achieve them. Sometimes my pain's just going to seem a little bit too far away to push against it. But by golly, if I got some accountability partners here in the middle and they're looking at me saying, hey, Court, check-in state of Friday. Did you do these 2 things that you said you were going to do this week? If not, you know what you got to do. Maybe it's 1,000 push-ups. Maybe it's going to be a silly video on social media. I had one of my coaching clients write me a check for $1,000 made out to the person that she dislikes the most. I held it in trust. I had the envelope ready for the person to send it to, and she had to send me daily reports on this thing that she was set to do to avoid my sending this check off to this person. And this is what, Sam, I think friends need to do for each other more, is create an environment where we help one another level up, where we help one another be so accountable to the goals that we've set for ourselves that I'm not going to be the friend to let you down, man. Like, I love you too much to allow that to happen in your life, because I know that you wish your life was going to be 5x as long as it's going to be. And you've got massive gifts inside you. And now I feel responsible as a part of you and your success journey to be around you to help you win. And what a pleasure it is for me to be a guy that can help someone else do that. And in return, I get the same. And together, here we are. Look at us achieving the things that we're achieving and building a better world, a more accountable world, where I think you'll see fewer people standing around pointing and more people standing around taking responsibility. To me, that's just critical. Like, take ownership, have accountability, look inward and say, hey, what's my piece in this? How can I be better to affect better outcomes for those around me? And I think that's what accountability does.
Wow. So well articulated. I think something you said when I had you on for the students that really struck me was that, and you could probably rephrase it better than I could. You said accountability is the greatest form of love. Holding someone to that high standard is the greatest form of love. And I remember that really struck me hard, of like, yeah, telling you you're awesome and you're great and you're amazing all the time. That may feel like love in the moment, but true love, real love might be like, hey man, I think you need to step it up in this area. And I'm the person that's going to tell you that. So just so well said. And if someone's looking, go.
I was just going to say, and for our listeners, Sam, you know, whether or not somebody's building a team, I want you to think about these things in terms of the partnerships that you have, the people that you work with, your family members, your kids, even your parents, right? Like, how much better can your relationships be if we asked the question, what could I do to be of service to you in a bigger, better way? And I was prepared to be held accountable to whatever that feedback was. Not because I'm looking at you opening up the door for you to ask the same question, because that often doesn't happen, but because I recognize that at the center of all these relationships in my life is me. And if I can show up better in all these relationships, then I can enhance them, and I can earn the opportunity to have accountability spread more widely, and for me to have the chance to give that feedback in a way that's going to be received as love rather than criticism. But it does start with ourselves, for sure, right?
Yeah. Tactical question. Let's say someone hears this from you, they get it. They're like, I want an accountability buddy. What makes, in your opinion, what makes a good accountability partner, and how does someone find a good accountability partner?
Yeah, that's a hard one, man. I think the first thing you want to ask yourself is, you know, what are the one or two things that you're going to laser focus on? I mean, it's so easy to get distracted. Sam, one of the reasons why you're so successful is that you've lasered in, right? You know, you do one might say two things possibly. Okay. I think once you even get to three, it's a stretch. So, you know, what are your two things? Okay. What's your one thing? Once you've got your head around what your one or two things are, then I want you to try to find some people who are vibing the same way, who love the same things, and are working towards achieving the same goals. See, it's really difficult, Sam, for me at this stage in my life to find an accountability partner who's outside of my business, because they don't really understand exactly what it is that I'm after, and the nuances and how critical it might be, right? And so finding someone who's plugged into who I am and what I'm trying to do, I think that's thing one. Thing two is to try to find people who are near your same level. And so I would say, if you're trying to form a group, let's say, and I know that you're working on creating pods in your organization, and you and I believe so strongly in those just being like the pièce de résistance for like success, I think it's really, really important that you have a cluster of folks that are kind of in the same realm of success. Let's just use an example. Let's say we've got people in your organization that are going from having 0 doors to, 10,000 doors, as an example. I don't think it would be wise to have an accountability group that has the 0 door person and the 100,000 door person. I think there's going to be such a big gap in learning that the accountability is going to seem a little bit, I don't know, off and hard to relate to. But, maybe it's 0 to 100. I mean, I can't say I don't know the business well enough, but you get what I mean. Just finding people that are kind of in this reasonable realm where we can all understand the struggles. We all understand the nuances of one another's businesses and the things that we're trying to achieve, where it resonates with us, where we want it for one another, and where it's just not super hard to track. Like, I think one of the biggest mistakes people make about accountability is they say, like, okay, well, it's going to be this, and this, and if this, then, and it's like, no. Like, what's the one thing that you're going to do this week? Is it going to find 5 deals? Is it going to be, I'm going to interview team members for my real estate? I want to interview realtors this week, and I'm going to choose a realtor. Is it, I'm going to write an offer this week on my first vetted deal. So I had my vetted deals last week, and now I'm going to write this week. Like, make it simple, make it yes or no, and find people who want you to win. And I would just say, don't wait around too long if you haven't found that. If you find people are letting you off, give them a call out or two. Say, hey, listen, like I can appreciate the fact that you're trying to help me stay comfortable, but I get that in other parts of my life. I'm not here for that. I'm here for accountability. If they can't do that, then just move on, pull pin and move on. If it's in Sam's organization and you find that your pod's not vibing, or maybe you're not getting what you need, just ask to be placed in a different pod. No big deal. You know what? Maybe there's going to be some hurt feelings, but listen, you get one chance at life. As long as you're being respectful, as long as you're caring, and as long as you're looking out for you, your family, and the things that you're trying to do, hey, that's a blessed thing. Just be transparent about it and go find your posse. It took me a minute too. I found mine, and I've had great success as a result. Many friendships, many blessings, tons of accountability, and a beautiful journey that I've been on that I want to stay on and continue to be grateful that I have the challenges that I have today.
Such a great roadmap, man. Thank you for sharing that. Well, Courtney, I think ultimately, I think we've come to the end of our time here. I know you and I could top on here for another hour and just keep going. This is good stuff, man. This has been one of my favorite interviews, and it's not because of the great questions I've asked. It's because I'm feeling everything you're saying, man. Because you're one of those guests I could just get on here with and let you roll, and I'm taking. I got a page of notes, man.
Dude, it would be the exact same. I'll tell you, I'm doing starting a podcast coming up here in a couple of weeks. I think before we get to it. Yeah, I've had a couple stalled starts. I think I've recorded 10 or so episodes of various podcasts over the years, none of which you could find released anywhere. But I'm gonna ask you to be on it, Sam. I have so much respect for you, and your journey is incredible. I hope, man, that your audience gets to hear so much of your story. I'm not sure how much of it you share, but it might be worthwhile for you to have somebody come on and interview you one day, because you've got so many gifts, man. There's so much in you to share. There's so many great stories that you've got, bro. I hope that the people in your organization get a chance to hear those too.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Would you share with everybody just a little bit about kind of how you help people? I mean, I know you are a high performance coach right now, so I'd love for people to hear a little bit about that, how they can stay in touch with you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the easiest
continue to follow your journey.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, you can see my name here on the screen. Check me out on Facebook. I'm on TikTok and LinkedIn, also on Instagram, of course. My coaching company is called Real Estate Growth Solutions, but we've had to consider changing the name. I'm now coaching financial advisors at banks and creating programs for wealth advisors to help them be more effective in their sales business. And I would say kind of my ninja skill or my unique gift is really working with people on their state of being and giving them the tools to be the way that they can be and should be to produce the best results, doing the things that we also teach: sales strategies, business building, change management, structuring leadership teams, building businesses. I mean, that's the stuff that we love to do in our coaching business, but that's all built on the foundation of how do we help you be the best version of yourself so that those things are just easier. And so when you're doing them, the results are maximized because you're just being real. You're just showing up this beautiful version of yourself, blessed, whole, true, and watching all these things come to you with great flow. And so to me, I just love seeing that happen for people's businesses when we get to work together, because I just know that I tried so hard for so many years, Sam, and it seemed like a real grind to me, and it seemed like nothing was coming fast enough. And once I learned just a different way of being, it seemed a lot easier. And I feel like my gift is helping others discover that too.
So beautiful. And for those of you that are just listening audio and maybe not watching this, I'll just drop we'll put all the stuff in there. We'll put all the links in the show notes as well, Courtney.
Yeah,
but it's Courtney.
I've got a link tree there. I'll send you, Sam, and you can share that. That's got all my platforms on it.
Perfect. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
And then the Instagram is Courtney_Atkinson, ATKINSON_. I just wanted to drop that as well. But
you got it.
My friend, thank you so much for your time. I know your time is incredibly valuable. So the fact that you would drop over an hour here with me means the world to me. I personally got a lot of value from this episode. And I just want to thank you so much for being on and sharing your story and sharing your wisdom.
So good to be here, Sam. Love what you're doing, man. And just to your listeners, bro, guys, you're so lucky to be around this guy. He's just informed so much of my life, Sam. You know that, but it's worth sharing to your audience just how integral a part of my life you've been over the years, man. I feel really, really blessed to know you and blessed to be here. So thank you, brother.
Thank you so much. That means the world. So what do you guys think? This is one of those episodes that really brought tears to my eyes, and I kind of had to fight back tears a couple of times to keep the podcast episode going. But this one really hit home for me. And if it hit home for you too, I'm just going to ask you to share this with someone who might need to hear this. As Courtney was talking, I got to be honest, several people kind of flashed through my mind. People who are out there, they're hustling, they're grinding, they're making it happen, but they're stressed or they're depressed or they're perpetually anxious. And I thought, you know what, this is probably an episode that they need to hear. Look, I don't care how much money you make. I don't care how much money you have or how much money you want to make. Ultimately, we don't know when our last day is. And so this journey to financial freedom is really a journey to freedom. It's a journey to peace. It's a journey to more centeredness. And that is truly what this episode is all about. And so please share this with someone who you feel it would make an impact on. Thank you for being a subscriber to the Scale Your Real Estate podcast. Thank you for following my journey through real estate and through financial freedom and through freedom. It's an honor to lead this, and just excited for what's next. God bless you guys. I'll see you on the next episode.